are coming on the air with a new development just into us after a high-profile murder verdict out of Texas. A former high school student late tonight found guilty of killing another student. The tears inside court after a trial that has torn apart a town. We're going to take you live to Texas, where we expect to learn his sentence any minute. Also new today, escalating danger with millions in the way of devastating flash floods. We are tracking those storms tonight. Plus, the disturbing video just in of a man attacked by a shark near a Navy base in Florida. What we're now learning about his condition. Then our one-on-one with the Attorney General of New Mexico as he investigates alleged criminal activity at Jeffrey Epstein's former ranch. The red flag he's now raising about the Justice Department's cooperation back here in Washington. And what to expect down the street at the Capitol with Bill Gates expected to face questions from lawmakers tomorrow. And in tonight's original, we'll take you inside Pope Leo's trip to Spain hours after he meets with Bad Bunny and takes a ride in a fighter jet. The Pope, he's just like us? We're live in Barcelona a little bit later in the show. Hey there, I'm Hallie, and right now we've got breaking news inside a Texas courtroom where a jury is about to hear arguments in the sentencing of a student athlete found guilty of murdering another student during a high school track meet. Our team inside court says Carmelo Anthony seemed to be in disbelief after the jury found him guilty of murder, at one point appearing to look down and cry. His mom immediately took the stand for the sentencing phase of this trial. It happens right away in Texas there. She told the jury in tears that her son regrets stabbing Austin Metcalf, who's the student he got into a fight with last April. She asked the jury for mercy, which brought one juror to tears. Anthony could face up to 20 years in prison for Metcalf's murder after his defense asked for this to qualify as an act of quote-unquote sudden passion. Other than that, if they don't have that qualifier, he could face 99 years. Prosecutors say Anthony intentionally used deadly force when he stabbed Metcalf during a track meet. They say the two were arguing because Anthony had gone into his rival school's tent, but the defense says Anthony acted in self-defense after basically getting ganged up on. Outside court, tensions in this very closely watched case started to spike. Look at this, protests breaking out right as soon as people outside heard the verdict. A big part of why this case has become controversial, it was when it happened. You probably remember the coverage. And even now, part of it is the jury makeup here. None of the jurors are black in a trial where the defendant is black and Metcalf is white. I want to bring in Ryan Chandler, who is outside court. So much emotion inside court from Anthony's family. What about from Metcalf's family? What do we see from them? And then what happens from here related to the sentencing?
Well, Hallie, we've been outside here since Thursday, where the crowd has been growing every day. Supporters mostly of Anthony's family here, but also of Metcalf's, coming to confront each other as soon as word of that guilty verdict reached the crowd out here. The tensions that have been building for days seemed to boil over. The police presence tripled, and people were screaming at each other, real visceral tears from Anthony's supporters as that news came out. Speaking with them, they continue to levy complaints about the makeup of the jury, as you mentioned, the fact that the prosecution moved to strike every black juror from the final jury has many concerned for the prospect of a fair trial. Although, Hallie, we need to stress, none of the evidence presented in this case hinted at race having anything to do with this murder. It was not racially motivated. Anthony's defense was solely about self-defense. How merciful the jury wants to be at this point is an open question with sentencing now. We have some reporting from inside the courtroom that when Anthony entered the courtroom again for sentencing, he was shaking, his mother pleading for mercy.
Tell us more about this sentencing phase, because we've seen in other trials, obviously in other states, there's like a period of weeks or even months perhaps between the verdict and the sentencing. Not so in this instance. So meaning we could, what, Ryan, later on tonight, right, find out what his sentence is going to be?
Yeah, Hallie, we expect this to happen very quickly. It's been described as something of a mini trial where we'll hear victim impact statements and we will hear from the attorneys again to make another case, not about guilt or innocence, but about what punishment, what prison time is necessary for this charge. Now, remember, Anthony is facing first-degree murder, not capital murder, so he is not eligible for the death penalty or for life without parole, but he does face a maximum sentence potential of 99 years. Hallie.
Ryan Chandler live for us there in Texas. Ryan, we'll look for updates from you if we get any news, anything on this over the course of the next hour or two. Thanks. Also tonight, millions of people are facing dangerous floods sweeping through the Midwest with more severe weather on the way. Really intense, folks. Look at this. Indiana People reportedly trapped inside their homes. The water here is moving super quickly. Officials told people, hey, get to your roof. If you're having an issue in your house, climb up onto your rooftop here. And then look at this video, this propane tank reportedly exploding, and then it floats on through some of these flooded streets. Super dangerous, especially because live power lines have gone down in the water, too. That's the warning from officials there. All of it creating really scary situations, not just for people who live in some of those houses you just saw and in some of these neighborhoods, but for rescue crews. They're on boats. They're trying to get to people. You see that here because the roads are just washed out. Baseball fields, parking lots. You can't even see them anymore. We've got team coverage on this tonight. Bill Cairns is standing by with what to expect over the course of the next few hours. But let me get to Maggie Vespa, who's following all of this. And the situation, it really is putting people on a knife's edge.
Yeah, Hallie, for sure. I mean, this is a tiny town outside Louisville, Kentucky, in southeast Indiana, excuse me. And this really developed over the course of just a couple of hours here this afternoon. And you can see feet of water basically swallowing looks like the entirety of the town's kind of downtown stretch and then stretching out into kind of areas where those schools and those baseball fields are. We've seen reports of people trapped inside places like Dollar General's, a fire station, a local church. Again, you said it, officials warning people to climb onto their roof if they need it, and evacuation warnings have gone out. But again, this is flash flooding. This is torrential downpour, 8 inches of rain in 24 hours. Some people saying up to 3 feet of water in some areas of town by their estimates. So this came up really fast and people were just caught incredibly off guard. Take a listen.
We've lived here 25 years. Never seen it like this. Once before I got on the road, but this is as worse as I've ever seen it.
Yeah, and this is a part of the country that is used to heavy rain in the spring, used to flooding in some capacity, but you heard it, never seen it like this. I should point out at this point, we don't have any reports of any injuries, but obviously this is a fast developing situation and crews still racing to get people that are trapped inside those homes and businesses. Hallie.
Maggie Vespa, thank you very much. Bill Cairns is joining us now. So what's the forecast, Bill? I mean, the situation dire in Indiana there.
Yeah, southern Indiana and still much of Kentucky is under a flash flood watch. Much of the thunderstorms in the last couple hours have been south of there, so that's good. We've kind of dried it out, but all that water is collecting still, and it's heading into the river, so we're still going to deal with flooding. Not so much the flash flooding anymore. We do have one flash flood warning. It's for the city of Bowling Green with these thunderstorms that roll through. The ground's just saturated, so just one thunderstorm is quickly producing flash flood warnings. Now we're going to switch this afternoon and then go right through the entire week of dealing with each and every afternoon dangerous winds and the possibility of tornadoes. Yesterday in Kansas, Salina, Kansas had 113-mile-per-hour wind gusts with a thunderstorm went through, knocked down trees all over the place. That's the sort of type of thing that's going to be possible over the next couple days. Already a severe thunderstorm watch for mostly rural sections of Kansas and Colorado. Later, we're going to watch this area up here in the Dakotas. So we're going to start in areas of the northern plains and then take this all the way to the east coast by Friday. So this is the area where we could see some strong thunderstorms, damaging wind and hail. This is where we have the chance for tornadoes, maybe an isolated strong tornado. So that's Fargo, Bismarck, southward, Sioux Falls, all the way down to Omaha. It's going to be a late evening thing, so after sunset too. So those nocturnal tornadoes are the ones that really scare people because you just don't get the alert possible. As far as the warnings go, and even the storm chasers, they can't see them. Then as we head towards tomorrow, the threat goes Minneapolis. Then we're including Chicago. So much more highly populated areas. Still a chance of isolated tornadoes. By Thursday, you see we're still hitting the same areas here. Chicago to St. Louis. By the time we get to Friday, it's going all the way to the East Coast. And I also have to mention the heat because this is really our first kind of widespread heat wave. We have heat alerts that are out there. Right now it feels like 100 in St. Louis, but that's nothing. Tomorrow will be a lot worse. Everywhere in orange, including California, New York City, Detroit, you're under heat advisories. And as we go through tomorrow afternoon, that's when we're going to start to ratchet things up a little bit. Memphis will feel like 106, still in the 90s in the eastern seaboard. Phoenix about 100. By the time we get into Thursday afternoon, that's when Raleigh goes to 104, and everyone pretty much from the East Coast to Texas will be feeling that heat. It's early. We got a lot of kids out there now out of school, going to camps and things like that, so it takes a little bit for everyone to get used to this.
Bill Cairns, thanks, man. A lot going on your maps. I appreciate you being there for us. Thanks. Stick overseas, where there is just really a high alert in the Middle East tonight after President Trump says the U.S. is going to have to respond after Iran shot down an American military helicopter, this Apache, similar to the one you're looking at here. It went down near Oman's coast in the Strait of Hormuz. That's that key waterway for oil that's been paralyzed now for months. Now, good news. The 2 soldiers inside that helicopter are safe, those two service members. Apparently they needed medical treatment, but CENTCOM says they are expected to survive. The whole thing is under investigation, but a U.S. official is confirming that it was an Iranian drone that downed the helicopter. That has made President Trump very unhappy. You see his post here, his words. The U.S. must, of necessity, respond to this attack. Okay, what does that mean? What is the specifics of that? TBD. But it's not even 24 hours after the president said yet again that any day now, literally this week, he's thinking the U.S. should reach a peace deal with Iran.
Did you say 2 or 3 days or 2 or 3 weeks?
2 or 3 days.
You'll be signing a peace agreement?
No, we have a good chance of doing it. We should be able to do it in 1 hour, if you want to know the truth.
What's the biggest sticking point right now?
I don't think there are any sticking points.
I want to bring in Courtney Kuby, who's joining us now. There's a lot here. Let me start with this helicopter attack, because you're learning a ton of new details about what exactly happened here.
Yeah, so what we know is it was flying over the Strait of Hormuz off the coast of Oman. It was hit by an Iranian drone, and it went down into the Strait of Hormuz.
Right.
Both the pilots survived the impact. What's remarkable is the way they were rescued here. This is the first time the U.S. military has ever done this. They have these sea-based drones. They're like boat drones, right? They have them that are operating
like unmanned
in the area.
boats.
Unmanned boats.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about little, like, you know, remote-controlled boats that your kids might use. These are 24, 25-foot-long boats.
Person-sized boats,
Person-sized
but with
boats.
no people.
No people on board. They're operated from, in some cases, by artificial intelligence, back at a control center, and they monitor those waters for things like any kind of narcotics trafficking or whatever. Well, they got one of those boats to these guys. They were able to climb on board. The boat, again, unmanned, took them a little further away. A helicopter hoisted them out of the water. They're now getting medical treatment. So it's a remarkable new way that the U.S. military has used to rescue these soldiers. They spent a couple hours in the water, though, Hallie.
It also underscores, I think, some of the concerns around this here. Let me, I want to flag, I'm looking at this new phone call that the president had with the Wall Street Journal, in which he said this helicopter incident was not a big deal. He says the pilot is fine. And it makes us think about this exchange from Kristen's interview with the president about the dangers to the troops. Yeah. This is from Friday. Let me play a little bit of that.
Are you saying you would consider sending some of the troops home, sir? Some of the 50,000 troops who were sent there as a part of Operation Epic Fury?
I would say this. It costs us very little to keep them there. I don't consider them in danger. We have the best defense anyone's ever seen. We have the best offense anyone's ever seen.
What's interesting here, Courtney, it costs us very little to keep them there. We just had an incident, obviously. And while the president, again, appearing in this Wall Street Journal interview to seek to downplay this, it still highlights what the real cost of war is when it comes to the people who are putting their lives on the line.
Yeah, we still have U.S. military operating every single day in very close proximity to offensive drones, attack drones that Iran is continuing to launch every single day. Yeah. We've also seen them launch these fast attack boats. Some of them are just packed with explosives, in some cases unmanned. They're launching surface-to-air missiles. The U.S. is responding, but there has been this continuous, day after day, it's almost an escalation ladder, where the two sides just move closer and closer and closer until it tends to erupt into attacks and strikes.
But what I think is maybe confusing for people watching this, right? You talk about this escalation ladder, but at the same time, there's a whole other verbal situation happening over here where the president keeps saying we're close to a deal, we're close to a peace deal, as we said right in the beginning of this conversation here. Give us a gut check on the reality of that, because the situation in the Middle East is super volatile. Israel, Lebanon, Hezbollah, that's all still at play too.
Yeah, so as long as Iran continues to see a peace deal as including Lebanon and Israel, this is going to be a very difficult deal to finally sign. And President Trump has been saying the same thing for weeks now, that we're close. It could be any day. It could be in the next couple of days. But Israel and Iran continues to make the deal about both what's happening between the U.S. military and the Iranians and what's happening between Israel and Hezbollah. And that's why this is so difficult to keep.
Is it
even get to a preliminary agreement?
But is it even realistic to think that Iran could decouple a peace deal from that?
Maybe that's one. Maybe they're closer on that. I mean, that's the other thing. We don't have a whole lot of transparency about exactly what's happening. We don't even know who on the Iranian side is doing this negotiating. So there's very little transparency beyond these comments. Like, for the president is, again, continue to make for weeks now about how close they are to a deal without providing any of the actual evidence to back that up.
Lots of moving pieces on this one, Court. Thank you very much for breaking that down. I appreciate it. Let's take you up to New England now, where it's not just political nerds keyed in on a super critical primary night. It's going to tell us just how enthusiastic Democrats are in a Senate race that's gotten controversial. a race they basically have to win to keep up their hopes of taking control of the Senate come November. This is Maine, of course, where Graham Plattner, like, he technically has a primary race against Governor Janet Mills, but Mills stopped campaigning a couple weeks ago when it became clear Plattner was going to run away with it, even despite some of those aforementioned controversies. Among them, a tattoo with what some say is a Nazi symbol. Plattner insists he didn't know the meaning behind it when he got it. There's the deleted posts on Reddit about a whole bunch of things. There's the sexually explicit text messages to other women while he was married to his wife. The couple has acknowledged the text. They say they worked through it all with counseling. There's the allegations, most recently, of what's been described as unsettling behavior from some women who dated him, allegations that Plattner largely denies. Now, remember, the winner of this primary, again, expected to be Plattner here, would face Republican Susan Collins. Susan Collins, who voters have picked 5 times in a row to rep their state, even in years when Barack Obama and Joe Biden won Maine and the White House. Ryan Nobles has made his way up to Maine. He is in Blue Hills Forest tonight. And it seems to me, Ryan, that if there is suspense in what's going to happen tonight, it's going to be what we're hearing from voters. And I've been interested to see your conversations with some of them who have kind of a range of thoughts on this. Everything from I'm torn, maybe I want to vote for Mills, but I'm going to vote for Plattner, to lesser of two evils, right?
Yeah, I think that's right, Hallie. And, you know, there's only so much a poll can tell us. It's a number, right? And the polls here show that anywhere between 65 to 75% of Democratic voters are with Graham Plattner. That's part of the reason that Janet Mills, the incumbent Democratic governor, chose to suspend her campaign. But when you talk to the voters inside those numbers, inside that 75% of the support, you do start to see some concern about these allegations against Graham Plattner. Now, there were many voters today that we talked to that are just worried about it. They think it's a problem. They wish that this was not part of his story. There are some that believe that he is on a bit of a redemption tour. They actually kind of like the fact that this is in his past because it shows that he's grown and that he has a connection with other people that have real life world experiences. But at the end of the day, they all are planning to vote for him. Take a listen to what some of them told us today.
I am extremely conflicted, and I don't know that I'm going to know until I walk in there.
You don't know what to believe, but we need some fresh voices. Somebody will stand up to those jerks down there.
And two things about those two women we talked to. Judy was the first one. We followed up with her afterwards. She said she did end up voting for Graham Plattner. She said she was worried about either sending a message to him or to the establishment. She said she voted for Plattner because she wanted to make sure the establishment knew that she was unhappy with the direction of the country. And that second woman we talked to also just felt that she was angry about the way things are, and she feels that a candidate like Plattner has what it takes to kind of shake things up. You know, Hallie, it's not all that different to what we heard from Republican voters back in 2016 when there was a guy named Donald Trump winning, and he was faced with a ton of scandals, but people didn't care because they wanted change. That's the kind of vibe we're getting, and I want to be clear here, from Democratic voters in Maine as we head into this general election that starts tomorrow.
But you're teeing me up on something that I think is super important to this conversation here when we look ahead to November. I think there was a moment, maybe however many months ago, Ryan, check me on this if I'm wrong, where I think the Democratic apparatus writ large was kind of like, all right, Maine. It's a state that's gotten bluer. You know, they see Susan Collins as vulnerable. They're thinking, okay, if we're looking at the Senate map and we want to win enough seats to take back the Senate, like we're going to get, like, Maine's, you know, not a lock, but we feel really good about it. I think there's some question marks about that now, partly because of not just Democratic voters, Ryan, but the independents that Graham Plattner is going to have to do well with if he wants to win this from a woman who has won her seat, as we said, 5 times in a row.
Yeah, and what's interesting is the other side of this coin, Hallie, is that we talked to a lot of Republicans today as well. They're actually excited that Graham Plattner could win the Democratic primary because they believe that Susan Collins can beat him easily as a result of all of these controversies. You know, they point to the fact that Susan Collins has been proven to outperform people who were considered to be much better candidates than Graham Plattner in previous election cycles. In fact, the last 2 election cycles, Democrats thought that she was going down, and she outlasted them. So this, all of a sudden, has become a state that Democrats were kind of almost banking in terms of a flip on their road to a majority, and now it's become quite the unknown. That's not to say that Graham Plattner can't win. I mean, the polling right now shows that this race is 50-50 at best. But the path to Democrats winning here is a lot harder, given everything that Graham Plattner has been dealing with over the past couple of weeks.
Ryan Nobles, thank you very much for that. To a Hollywood murder case now that's taken a pretty eye-popping twist. The son of director Rob Reiner is now trying to get access to the trust fund his mom and dad left him so that he can defend himself against the charges that he killed them. So let me say that again. Nick Reiner wants the money to pay for his legal bills after being accused of murdering his parents. His attorneys filed that petition today, saying that he has not been able to get access to this trust for 2 years. He's apparently titled to $1.5 million. They say, given the circumstances, it's actually an abuse for him to not get that money. They write that Nick is currently awaiting trial on double homicide charges. No use of his funds could be more important. Reiner has pleaded not guilty to the murder of his parents, Rob and Michelle. Remember, they were found stabbed to death in a shocking scene back in December at their home. Let me bring in Misty Maris, who's joining us now. I think this is, surprising for folks to hear that Nick Reiner is now saying he wants access to his trust fund that was presumably put in place by his parents, right, to defend himself against charges that he killed them.
Yeah, so he makes some legal differentiations between what he's seeking. So just the overall idea is that there's this thing called the Slayer statute in California, and it says that you can't financially benefit from killing someone. Now, we know Nick Reiner has pled not guilty, and there's been no disposition. We haven't had a trial yet. But what Nick Reiner has done is he's made an argument that there's this irrevocable trust that was given to him by his parents, and all he has to do is reach that age of 30 years old and ultimately 35 to get all the money from the trust. And it's separate and apart from all of the other Reiner family assets. So he says he's entitled to this money. Forget the Slayer statute. Forget anything else. He's entitled to it outright, because he was supposed to get half when he was 30 years old.
Could his siblings, Reiner's siblings haven't responded to a request for comment, but could his siblings block that money if they wanted to?
So, Hallie, they're not a party to this case. This is against the trustee who oversees it, but I could see a world where they intervene on that basis, given that you have the criminal trial pending.
What about, I think people, if you don't remember, and this was obviously such huge news when it happened, Reiner was initially being repped by this big-time L.A. defense attorney, Alan Jackson. He represented, Karen Reed, Harvey Weinstein, et cetera. Jackson dropped the case, apparently because Reiner couldn't afford him anymore. In the petition, apparently Jackson said he'd be willing to come back if the money is made available. Does that factor into any decision-making on this?
So it doesn't necessarily factor into what the court will consider, but you can see why Nick Reiner is pushing for this. Because keep in mind, Alan Jackson, high-profile defense attorney, but you're not just talking about the legal representation. You're talking about the whole legal team. You're talking about access to experts. This is a case where there could be an aspect of mental health or an aspect of substance abuse. So those experts would be critical.
Misty Maris, thank you very much for breaking that down. Appreciate it. We got to get back to some breaking news now in the Middle East. You know how we told you like 5 minutes ago that the president is now threatening to respond after the Iranians downed that Apache helicopter? That response has begun. CENTCOM now says the U.S. has started what's being described as self-defense strikes against Iran. Courtney Kibbe has scrambled back into the studio for us here because this just dropped, like I'm telling you, 90 seconds ago. What do we know about this response? This is basically now more U.S. strikes on Iran in retaliation, right, for the downing of the chopper.
Yeah, CENTCOM is saying these are in direct retaliation for the chopper that was hit, the Apache helicopter that was hit by an Iranian drone overnight. So we don't know exactly what they're hitting yet, but the CENTCOM is saying that these strikes are proportional. So what that generally means is they are going after something that, in this case, it was a drone that was launched at the helicopter. They would tend to go after the locations where those drones are launched, or potentially coastal radar sites where that are used to help direct those drones. Perhaps what they call command and control sites, where literally where the drones are directed out over where they're launched from. So that's what the military would call a proportional. We don't have the details yet. But again, we have also seen the U.S. military take strikes along that coastal area of the Strait of Hormuz, all the way down as far down into the Gulf of Oman as Garuk, which is on the coast of Iran, and then all the way back up to Keshem Island. So
we're going to map up to in a second.
Sorry, yes, I forgot.
You see it in your head.
I see it in my head.
Yes.
But
we
really,
don't know yet, right? We have no confirmation from the military.
We
as to
don't
what
know.
They're hitting.
We don't know.
But
yet.
here's a question, and there's a lot to get to here. Given what we have seen over the course of the last, let's say, 5-6 days, the strikes back and forth, right? And each side says it's retaliation for something else. How is this reasonably still being called a ceasefire?
There is no ceasefire when it comes to operations in the Strait of Hormuz. That's just a reality. So what the ceasefire is applying to right now, and that is holding for the most part, is major combat operations inside Iran. The U.S. military has not been carrying out daily strikes, going after hundreds of targets. The why I say for the most part it's holding is because Israel and Iran did trade strikes, and Israel did strike deep inside of Iran in the last couple of days. But the ceasefire between the U.S. and Iran is holding there. What is also going on at the exact same time is we have the U.S. military and the IRGC, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, and the conventional Iranian military, although it's primarily IRGC, that continue to operate with these competing blockades. And as they're doing that, they're putting up drones, they're putting up aircraft, they're putting out ships and small boats, and they're operating in such close proximity that there are these continued clashes that are occurring. They're moving closer to one another, and it leads to things like what we saw with this Apache being down. And I mean, Hallie, this could have had huge strategic consequences, given what the president has said about how he would potentially restart major combat operations if a U.S. soldier is killed. We almost had that happen in the last 24 hours.
And this is what I'm going to ask our team if they can pull up. I think we have the Truth Social, the post from the president, because on the one hand, he's telling the Wall Street Journal, like, I don't know when the interview was, within the last hour or so, the Wall Street Journal just posted it. He's telling the Wall Street Journal that this was not a big deal, this incident, that the pilot wasn't hurt. We know that, as we've said, both those service members are okay. They're expected to survive. But on the other hand, he's also saying we've got to retaliate. And now he's responding. Now the commander-in-chief, as you see here, is responding to the attack. How do we square those two things?
They're just competing narratives, is what it comes down to. I mean, what's correct is, yes, because these soldiers came out of it alive, it didn't have the larger strategic consequences that I talked about, where the president may have, as in his own words, said he might restart combat operations if a U.S. soldier is killed. But again, it just illustrates the daily, almost hourly danger that occurs because one of these strikes could have much bigger consequences than what we've seen here. And also, the U.S. has been responding to these provocations. And Iran is saying that the U.S. is the one who's provoking here. So it is this just constant back and forth of escalation.
I know I'm going to let you go back and get on the phone because I know you need to, but what's the biggest question right now that you have for your sources?
Is Iran going to respond again? I mean, right now...
Is this going to turn into just an escalating tit for tat?
What we have seen is it escalates up to strikes. Both sides take strikes, and then it de-escalates. And then it just slowly moves back up it's this escalation ladder until strikes occur again. It happens every couple of days. But what's concerning right now is those couple of days are shrinking, and we're seeing it happen much more frequently.
That's right. I mean, this is less than 24 hours, right? I mean, less than 18 hours, I think, since the downing of that helicopter.
It was actually, the helicopter went down almost exactly 24 hours ago right now.
Courtney Kube, I'm going to come back. Well, I'm going to ask you to come back in a couple of minutes here, but we wanted to make sure that folks know what was going on. And again, just to reiterate here, the president now ordering this response that the military is now conducting in the Middle East near the Strait of Hormuz in retaliation for Iran's downing of that Apache helicopter. Both service members on board that chopper are okay after a rather extraordinary rescue by a drone boat that Courtney has described. We're going to have much more on this breaking news as we get it. Our thanks to Courtney Kube. Keep it right here. We've got more to come on that. Plus, more to come on some of the concerns after this really intense shark attack at a Navy base in Florida, stunningly captured on camera. Plus, the big move the FDA is making on sunscreen, allowing new ingredients for the first time in a long time. Next. Some stunning shark attack video out of Florida tonight shows what happened at a Navy base with the victim now in critical condition. We've got to warn you, the video you're about to see is disturbing. It's rare to see something like this, but you see the man in the water when the shark approaches. You can see its fin, actually. And then oh God, people on the beach nearby screaming for help. Blood fills the water around them. The victim is apparently a staff member at the base who was swimming near the marina during his lunch break Monday when this all happened. That's according to a naval officer there. The victim was badly hurt on both of his arms. He was rushed into surgery at the hospital. Multiple agencies are now investigating. Steve Patterson is following this story for us. Steve, what else do we know?
Yeah, hard to watch. Really tough video to see there. We know this happens about 11:45 or so yesterday. As you mentioned, these two staff members are on their lunch break. They're swimming in what is called this recreational marina, the one you see there. And then this horrific shark attack happens. Blood in the water, fin in the air, people screaming, pleading for help. We're told, as you mentioned, taken into the hospital, treated, went through a surgery, both his arms severely injured. We're just hearing he was taken in critical condition. We We do not know his status right now, but we know he was then transferred after recovering from that surgery to another trauma hospital. So really badly wounded in that attack. In the meantime, we're hearing some of the traffic between the first responders who were talking and radioing as this shark attack is coming in. I want to play it for you. Listen to what they said. Listen to this.
Shark attack out at the Navy base, and it looks like where the camper park is. This should be where the RV park and pavilion is. This is inside the base. It's at the Navy campground inside the base.
Horrific stuff. Of course, Florida is the #1 state for shark attacks. There were something like 11 bites in 2025. Of course, California, Hawaii, states like that, Texas follow on that list. Shark attacks, of course, unprovoked, exceedingly rare. It's something like 1 in 11 million. You're more likely to be struck by lightning, but they are happening. Of course, in specific feeding areas, they are becoming more and more popular. People have to watch out, especially when you're in an area like that. Hallie?
Steve Patterson, thank you. Let's get you over to the 5 things our team thinks you should know about tonight. Number 1, new protests in Northern Ireland after somebody was stabbed in a knife attack there, now in the hospital in serious condition. The suspect, who police say is Sudanese, is now in custody, with some people calling for a crackdown on immigration there. You can see some of the scenes. Leaders are urging people to stay calm. We're watching this one. Number 2, police in Kenya have reportedly shot and killed a man during a new protest against a proposed Ebola quarantine center for American citizens. A judge there has temporarily pressed pause on the construction of the center. Protesters have been arguing that the country's health system is too fragile to handle this. Number 3, reality TV stars the Chrisleys have just sued their former attorneys for $25 million. The couple says their ex-lawyers are to blame for losing a case that sent them to prison for 2 years. Todd and Julie Chrisley, remember, were pardoned by President Trump after their conviction on fraud and tax evasion back in 2022. A spokesperson for the ex-attorneys tells us the suit will be vigorously defended. Number 4, the stadium that's going to host the U.S.'s first World Cup match has averted a big strike. A union repping 2,000 workers struck a last-minute deal with SoFi Stadium leaders in L.A. And boy, this was down to the wire. The U.S.'s first match is on Friday. The union had called for pay increases, so more money and some safety protections. We don't have the details of the deal, but we'll share them when we get them. Number 5, good news for lovers of skincare. The FDA has approved a new sunscreen ingredient for the first time in more than 20 years. It's been used a long time over in Europe and Asia. Experts say it's a lot more stable than some other sunscreens on store shelves in the U.S. Still ahead for us tonight, the New Mexico Attorney General raising concerns about the DOJ's cooperation as he's trying to look into what happened at Zorro Ranch, Epstein's property in that state. What he's telling us in a one-on-one next. Plus, more to come, too, with the police chase in Louisiana that ended with an alligator. We've got that explanation in a sec. On Capitol Hill, one of the biggest names in business is set to face questions about his ties to Jeffrey Epstein. Bill Gates set to appear in front of the House Oversight Committee for a closed-door deposition. He's called his multiple meetings with Epstein a mistake. He hasn't been charged with any wrongdoing in connection to the notorious convicted sex offender, but lawmakers think Gates could still be a useful source of information.
We want to ask Mr. Gates why he continued that relationship. Who else did he see? What else might he know? And who else should we be bringing in to ask questions of?
Gates' appearance is set for tomorrow. After today, Epstein's longtime former assistant talked with the committee, Leslie Groff. You see her there. She has previously denied any knowledge of his criminal activity. One lawmaker describing Groff as soft-spoken and sounding kind of skeptical of parts of her testimony related to Epstein.
She worked for him for 18 years, but maintains that she did not have a relationship. Well, she wouldn't call it a relationship, yet there are statements by her and by Mr. Epstein that talks about how close they were. It is highly inconsistent.
So the federal investigation, right, that congressional investigation, we should say, is unfolding as New Mexico is conducting its own state investigation. You're looking at Zorro Ranch here. That's Epstein's property. You might remember we did some reporting there some weeks ago. I spoke with the state's Attorney General, Raul Torres, earlier today, who says he has some concerns now about the Justice Department's cooperation. Thank you so much for being here. You are in Washington to speak with survivors. This was a goal, right? Talk to me about this conversation that you had with them yesterday.
So there was a convening that was hosted by the World Without Exploitation, which is a group that really is focusing on raising awareness in this country and around the world, frankly, about the impact of human trafficking. And it provided an opportunity for us to get in front of Epstein survivors and let them know about New Mexico's ongoing criminal investigation.
To do this, to conduct this investigation, you obviously need materials, you need information. And you have asked, and you referenced this yesterday too, that you've asked the DOJ for unredacted access to the Epstein files, and you still do not have it. Why do you think that is?
Well, look, we're working through a process that it's called the 2E process. It's complicated, but the bottom line is there is a longstanding practice of federal law enforcement and state law enforcement collaborating, coordinating, sharing information. We have engaged the Department of Justice. We are still waiting for that access. It is frustrating. I'll tell you that it is hindering our ability to move this investigation forward at the pace that I would like. And I'm hoping that we can resolve that in a way that serves the interests of these survivors. But, you know, it remains to be seen whether or not we're going to have unredacted access to the
But what does that mean? Do you is your only option here to wait? What do you do from here if the DOJ is not going to play ball and give you what you're asking for? Well,
look, I haven't ruled anything out in terms of what next steps might be.
Including legal action against the DOJ?
That's a possibility. But my hope is that we can have a cooperative relationship. We've been meeting with people on Capitol Hill who have really taken a lead in trying to bring transparency to the Epstein files. I know that's the thing that is frustrating both members of both party on Capitol Hill, but also the survivors themselves.
You said you are hopeful for cooperation here from this Department of Justice, which is if the nomination for the potentially soon-to-be Attorney General goes through, will be Todd Blanche leading that department. He is somebody who said just a couple of months ago that to the extent that the Epstein files was a part of the past year of this Justice Department, it should not be a part of anything going forward. Do you believe then, given that Todd Blanche is the right person to lead the DOJ and by extension lead any sort of cooperation with your office on the Epstein files?
Yeah, I would defer that judgment to the members of the Senate Judiciary Committee, who I know are going to be tasked with taking up his nomination. What I will say is that as a career law enforcement and state and federal prosecutor, it's unusual for us to not have this kind of cooperation.
Does it concern you that the potential next AG said what he said about the Epstein case?
It is. I mean, it's concerning that we don't have a level of cooperation that, again, as a longtime prosecutor, was pretty routine for state investigators and prosecutors to work with our federal counterparts, ask for information, and receive that information in a timely fashion. We are continuing to try and work through the process that they have established, but at this point, there is a growing sense of frustration on my team about the lack of access to critical information.
So what does that timeline look like? I know you've told survivors that you can't be sharing every detail publicly about your investigation because it is criminal, but what can you say about where this is going? I look at, for example, Leslie Groff, who's going to be on Capitol Hill today testifying behind closed doors. Is she somebody you want to talk to? What else? Who else are you looking to bring in?
Well, we will be looking to talk to and dig into the details around any individual who was directly involved with Jeffrey Epstein's conduct at Zorro Ranch in New Mexico. And so we don't leave anyone off the table in terms of the leads that we're going to follow. But this is a really important point. I think there is some confusion about the fact that as a criminal investigation, we don't talk publicly. This is Fight Club. We don't talk about it.
You can issue subpoenas, right?
We can.
And have you?
And, well, we won't. We're not going to discuss publicly what we do as investigators because that's in the nature of what we do, and it's very different than members of Congress. And I've had members of Congress and others, even back in New Mexico on the Truth Commission, urge us to really get into the details publicly about what we're doing. But what I want to do in terms of public statements is to encourage survivors.
Well, and to this point, you know, when you talk about trust, one of the things in my conversations with some survivors, I do think there is to a degree a sense of fatigue sometimes with the process.
Absolutely.
They've done a lot of talking. They've done a lot of talking. I think there are many survivors who want to see some accountability now moving forward. When you say to them, I'm not just another man in a blue suit, I need you to trust me, why should survivors believe that you will be the person to, as they hope, carry this ball over the finish line when it comes to some sort of degree of accountability additionally?
Yeah, I mean, frankly, it's because we are not spending a lot of time publicly discussing all of the things that they have already talked about publicly. My career and my entire life in public service, frankly, has been focused on trying to protect survivors, right? To protect children who have been abused, adults who have been the victims of sexual assault and sexual violence. And one of the things that I've learned from that experience is that it's a sacred thing to build a relationship with a survivor and ask them to share details which are, I mean, the most tragic things that you can.
It's so vulnerable.
That's right. And so what we want them to understand is that this is different. I'm not trying to promise them an outcome as a prosecutor. We never do that. We will never make a promise about a particular outcome that we want to achieve at the end of this, other than getting to the truth, other than getting to the bottom of exactly what happened and getting a clear understanding of how this was allowed to occur at Zora Ranch for so long without a law enforcement response.
Mr. Attorney General, thank you so much for being with us. An important conversation. We appreciate it.
Absolutely.
NBC News covers hundreds of other stories every day, and because it can be tough to read or watch or listen to them all, our bureau teams have done it for you. This is what they tell us is going down in their regions in a segment we call The Local. Out of our Western Bureau, one person has been killed, another hurt after a shooting in L.A. led a car to slam into this beauty salon. It's not clear if the victim died because of the shooting or the crash. Officials are still looking for the gunman. Out of our Northeast Bureau, a huge fire at a triple-decker apartment building in Massachusetts. Look, you can see the fire coming out from the back porch right there. 12 people had to be evacuated, but fortunately nobody was hurt. And out of our Southern Bureau, an unexpected turn during a police chase in Louisiana. Police there say a man was attacked by an alligator when he jumped in a swamp to try to get away from the cops. So he gets into the swamp to get away from police, ends up with an alligator. He'd been pulled over for reckless driving. Can you see he's swimming? That's the body cam video showing him swimming. He was bitten, but then kept going. He kept running. Officially, we understand officers have arrested him. They have taken him to the hospital. Coming up, have you heard this? The Pope meeting with Bad Bunny, riding in a fighter jet. We're going to take you inside his first trip to Spain in this new role, and all the highlights in just a sec. To tonight's original now with in-depth reporting on a topic we've been watching. And tonight, we're taking you to Spain for the Pope's first trip there, the first American Pope. And guess what he did? He met with Bad Bunny in Madrid, as one does when you're the Pope, before making his way to Barcelona, where we're getting an inside look at what is now the tallest church in the world, La Sagrada Familia. Tomorrow, Pope Leo set to bless its new tower and honor 100 years since the death of the church's mastermind, even as he finds himself embroiled in a bit of controversy. Raf Sanchez explains.
Soaring over Barcelona's skyline, the Sagrada Familia is an unfinished architectural wonder a century in the making. But its central spire, the Tower of Jesus Christ, is now finally complete. 566 feet high and crowned with a cross the size of a 5-story building, it makes Sagrada Familia officially the tallest church in the world.
It's definitely the most exciting church I've ever seen.
Millions flock here every year, including more than 700,000 Americans.
I've traveled a lot, and this is the piece of architecture that blows me away.
And soon the first American Pope will be among them. Arriving today in Barcelona as part of a week-long trip to Spain, where he was greeted by more than 1 million people in Madrid and held a private meeting with pop superstar Bad Bunny, who was performing in the Spanish capital at the same time, and becoming the first pontiff to address the Spanish parliament, warning lawmakers that war and political polarization are pushing the world into a profound spiritual and cultural crisis.
So the Sagrada Familia looks pretty close to being finished, but from here you can see those cranes all around it. Construction won't be fully done until at least 2034, according to authorities, and even that isn't a firm date.
Tomorrow, Pope Leo will officially bless the completed Jesus Tower and commemorate 100 years since the death of the man who first imagined it. Legendary Catalan architect Antoni Gaudí, the mastermind of Sagrada Familia's distinctive shape and texture. He began construction in the late 1800s, and his work was far from finished when he was killed in a tram accident in 1926. But the vision outlived the visionary, and over the last century, generations of architects have strived to finish Gaudí's work. Among them, Mauricio Cortez, who last year took NBC News behind the scenes as his team assembled the giant cross.
Gaudí wanted the cross to resemble a crystal.
In one of Pope Francis's last acts before his death, he put Gaudí, sometimes known as God's architect, on the path to potential sainthood. Now he'll need 2 verified miracles if the Sagrada Familia's continued glory isn't enough. A miraculous monument of faith, unfinished but beautiful, now ready to be blessed by the Pope.
Raf is joining us now. The assignment of the week, the live shot of the week. I mean, that is a heck of a scene behind you, Raf. And what's also interesting here, 100%. I am intrigued as we have, all over the world, World Cup fever going down too. The Pope found himself in a bit of a controversy there in the middle of Spain's biggest rivalry when he visited Real Madrid this week instead of the Barcelona team, right?
Yeah, big controversy, Hallie, in a city where soccer is like a religion in itself. This actually began before the Pope even set foot in Spain. He was asked on the papal plane to Madrid whether he supported Real Madrid or Barcelona. And the Pope, who of course was born Robert Prevost, gave this kind of interesting answer. He said, that's easy. The Pope is for all teams, but Prevost is for Real Madrid. That did not go down well here. Hallie.
Okay, Raf Sanchez, much to watch. We'll look for more from you from Spain soon. Thanks for watching. This is HJN on NBC. We are coming on the air with breaking news in just the last 30 minutes or so. The U.S. is now striking Iran again in response to Iran's downing of a U.S. military helicopter just about 24 hours ago. We've got team coverage in Washington and the region with what you need to know. Also new today here at home, escalating danger with millions in the way of devastating flash floods. We're tracking those storms tonight. Then the high-profile murder verdict out of Texas. A former high school student found guilty of killing another student. The tears inside court after a trial that has torn apart one town. We'll take you live to Texas. We expect to learn more about this controversial case and the sentence any minute. Plus, we're live in Maine with voters set to pick a controversial candidate in a race Democrats basically need to win to try to take back the Senate. Why many Dems are telling our team they are standing by their man, Graham Plattner. Plus, why the son of Hollywood director Rob Reiner says the trust fund his parents left him should pay for the legal costs he needs to defend himself from charges he killed them. We've got that story coming up a little bit later on in the show. Hey there, I'm Hallie, and we are starting with breaking news out of the Middle East. Right now, the U.S., we are learning, is striking Iran with a new round of attacks, what the U.S. calls self-defense strikes, in retaliation for a drone attack on an American military helicopter, an Apache. It's like the one you see here. The 2 service members who were inside are expected to be okay. All of it, as in the last little bit here today, the president spoke with the Wall Street Journal, downplaying the helicopter incident, saying it was not, quote, a big deal. We have Gabe Gutierrez at the White House, Courtney Kube on the latest from the Pentagon, but I want to start with Matt Bradley in Doha because, Matt, CENTCOM is now confirming that there are active strikes now in the region against Iran in retaliation. The president had previewed this, I want to say 4 or 5 hours ago, had said the U.S. was going to have to respond. And now it appears that response has begun.
Yeah, it does, and it looks as though this could be a proportional response, and that's what we heard from CENTCOM. That makes me think that this could be really calibrated to avoid an escalation. Now, we also heard the president, speaking to the Wall Street Journal, had said that the downing of this helicopter wasn't a big deal and that the pilot was fine. It looks as though he is trying to diminish the importance of this. We had heard from the president that both of the pilots who were on that Apache helicopter, that they were rescued, that they received medical care, and and that they survived, and it sounds like survived with very few or no injuries. Important to note here, Hallie, it looks as though this is more of what we've seen over the past couple of months. The ceasefire being maintained, the U.S. striking targets around the area of Bandar Abbas in southern Iran. Now we're hearing reports from Iranian state media that there are sounds of explosions in the area of Sirik, also in southwestern Iran, near the Strait of Hormuz, and Keshem Island, which is a major oil and gas hub. So all of this looks like maybe what we saw earlier over the weekend when the U.S. was striking targets around there. Now, this is going to be a major concern, not just to American diplomats, but also to people in the Gulf. Last time we saw this, Iran retaliated by striking Kuwait and Bahrain.
Matt Bradley, live for us there in the region. Matt, thank you. Court, let me go to you because it appears that the U.S. has struck near this area before as recently as the end of last month, which speaks to this sort of what you've called this escalating ladder. You heard Matt talk about if this is a proportional response, there may be some hopes that it's not going to escalate things, but walk us through that.
Yeah, and that's what we've seen happen,
right,
too, is we have seen, remember, Iran shot down an MQ-1, a U.S. drone, not long ago, and the U.S. responded by, again, what they would call it was a self-defense strike, and it was proportional. They go after the places where they launch the drones, or they go after those kinds of things. So that's how they sort of measure this proportionality. We have seen the majority of these strikes be in the same general area. It's along the Strait of Hormuz, the coastal areas where they're launching not only drones, but also the fast attack boats, the small boats that are sometimes packed with explosives, and where they've even launched some of these surface-to-air missiles that have targeted ships, by the way, in the Strait of Hormuz.
Let me bring in Gabe to the conversation. Stand by for a sec, Court, because, Gabe, this is in response to the downing of that Apache helicopter just about, I want to say almost exactly now, 24 hours ago. The president, I guess, got on the phone or spoke with the Wall Street Journal and seemed to downplay that attack, saying it wasn't a big deal. He pointed out that the pilots survived. Both of the service members are expected to be okay. They had non-life-threatening injuries, according to the military. But it does lead to some real questions now, because as the president also 24 hours ago suggested, we're close to maybe peace negotiations. Right. You also have now active strikes happening as we speak in the region.
That's right, Hallie. Look, and the president is trying to walk a very fine line here. On the one hand, trying to downplay the attack on the Apache helicopter to the Wall Street Journal, but at the same time trying not to appear weak when it comes to any potential retaliation to Iran. You saw a social media post a couple hours ago saying that the U.S. must respond. And this comes, Hallie, after just several days ago, it was just last week here in the Oval Office, that the president was asked specifically, would he restart the war if Iran killed any American troops? And the president called it a very interesting question, but he did say, I would do that very quickly. He actually responded to a reporter's question on that. So you notice when he spoke with the Wall Street Journal, he emphasized that the pilot was fine. The pilots were fine. He also said that last night when he was speaking to reporters outside of Air Force One on the tarmac. So clearly the president appears to be making a distinction here that because no Americans were killed, because the pilots are okay, then this could be a proportional response and does not amount to a major escalation here. But you're right. His timeline that he gave last night, that we could see a ceasefire deal, a peace deal in 2 to 3 days, that remains an open question at this point, Hal.
He said it even more urgently than that, or with an even shorter timeline than that, Gabe. He suggested it could happen in 60 minutes. Let me play what he said. Watch this.
Did you say 2 or 3 days or 2 or 3 weeks?
2 or 3 days.
You'll be signing a peace agreement?
No, we have a good chance of doing it. We should be able to do it in 1 hour, if you want to know the truth.
What's the biggest sticking point right now?
I don't think there are any sticking points.
But I think this is part, Gabe, of what is so complicated with this process and what is sometimes hard to understand, which is if there are no sticking points, why is there no deal?
Well, certainly. Look, and this is what the president has been saying really for the past several weeks, Hallie,
right,
that the deal is just around the corner. We could see it in a few days. We can see it later this weekend. We can see it next week. These are all different timelines that he's given, and he gave it. He talked about it when he spoke to our colleague Kristen Welker in that interview in Wisconsin on Friday. And the reason he gave for why this is taking so long, he says it's difficult to communicate with Iran's leadership. He also said that Iranian leadership was, quote, proud, and that's why he was saying that there were conflicting messages on what might be agreed to in this deal. But certainly the president, as I said, trying to walk this very fine line with, on the one hand, trying to downplay what's going on with the any potential attacks, and also though trying to make it kind of will it into existence that this peace deal will happen. Certainly, if there is any sort of escalation here, and we have to wait until to see what Iran does in retaliation, if anything, that could send this drag on these negotiations for even longer. We just don't know at this point.
All of it is part of that escalation ladder we've been talking about with you, with Courtney, with others, and the question, of course, how do you de-escalate and get back down? Gabe Gutierrez on the White House North Lawn there, with I guess some activity out on the plaza, is my guess.
Actually, behind me, the UFC fight that is happening later on this weekend on Sunday. There appear to be some sort of musical rehearsals in the distance there. You can just see it. Oh, there we go. Our control room punching up that shot.
Okay.
Yes, the sound check back there. You can see that arch over where the cage match will be. Certainly a lot of activity here at the White House, Hallie.
Quite the split screen, indeed. Gabe Gutierrez, thank you very much. Appreciate that. Elsewhere in the U.S., you got millions of people facing this escalating danger. Dangerous floods, they're sweeping through the Midwest, and more intense weather is on the way. We've been watching this the last couple of days, but it's really started to pick up. Look at this out of Indiana. Reports of people being trapped inside their homes. The water here is rising so fast. Officials are telling people, you got to get on your roof. If you can't get out, don't try to make your way out. Get up on the roof and wait for somebody to come and help you. Look at this. This is a propane tank that reportedly exploded. Then it gets carried away. So it's like exploding and floating down what used to be a street. There's live power lines in the water also. Good thing that truck is turning around. It's all creating some really scary situations for not just the people who live in these areas, but first responders. They've got to get out there. They've got to get in this water. They're using boats. They're trying to get to people. You see some of those efforts there in Louisiana, and in Indiana. And you can see what it looks like with roads, fields, lots, totally washed out. You can't even see them. Listen to what one person there is telling our NBC station.
We've lived here 25 years. Never seen it like this. Once before I got on the road, but this is as worse as I've ever seen.
I want to bring in Maggie Vespa, who's following all of it. Maggie, bring us up to speed.
Yeah, Hallie, this was torrential flash flooding, and you can see it in the pictures how bad it got. It's also worth noting how quickly this came up. People saying that they've never seen it this bad. They've also never seen water levels rise this quickly. We're talking people trapped in local firehouses, local churches, local Dollar General, like local businesses. One staff member telling our local affiliate that she was trapped inside the bank she was working at as water came up to the door there. And then you can see how quickly it's flowing down the streets, again, overtaking bridges. They're having to throw up caution tape to keep people back. Evacuation warnings and orders were issued earlier today, with some people being told to go out on the roofs of their homes if they had really no other choice. And then we saw those kind of rescue crews being deployed by boat. The news is we don't know if there were any injuries. There have been no reports, I should say, of any injuries in the area. We also don't know how many rescues were actually that actually happened there, and how many people were actually having to be taken out of the area by boat. But this is, again, is a really fast-moving situation at this point. Still have a lot of power outages in the area, and cleanup's only beginning, Hallie. As you know, flash floods come in quickly and they recede quickly as well, so the damage estimates are just getting underway.
Yeah, no kidding, Maggie. And this comes after several days in other parts of the country. I'm thinking about Alabama, for example, where we've seen this as well, along with, I think it was Oklahoma.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've seen torrential storms rolling through those areas. And we're talking about lightning and severe winds. And you can see the damage trail that was left behind in those areas as well. The flooding down south was really impactful. The widespread flash flooding you can see in that area, too. And as that begins to recede and the damage assessments go on there, we're also kind of watching for reports of repairs. It's going to be a long road ahead for people in Huntsville. And you can see that area just widespread, entire highways swallowed. Happening there as well. So it's been an exhausting day across a huge swath of the country, with more storms firing up tonight, Hallie.
Maggie Vespa, thank you very much for that. Bill Cairns, our meteorologist, is tracking where this storm system goes next. Bill, what you got?
Yeah, I want to start with what happened last night, right around 9:30. And, small town, Salina, Kansas, out on Interstate 70, they had just an incredible burst of wind go through. We call it straight line wind. So severe thunderstorms, we all know they can produce tornadoes, which those winds can go all the way up to almost 200 miles per hour. But what is more common is what we call straight line winds, with, gusty winds that come as the thunderstorm's rolling in. You've probably experienced it, I'm sure, in your areas. Well, this is what it looked like on radar. This bright purples, that's the heavy rain, and also the winds with it that went through Salina. And the airport there recorded 113 mile per hour wind gusts. Yeah, that's the equivalent of like a Cat 3 wind gust. If we were talking what a hurricane 113 mile per hour wind would be. So that's why we had so much wind damage and power outages and just, there's just trees everywhere there. So that was last night. Today we've dealt with flash flooding. We've got a couple flash flood warnings. I want to focus your attention here on downtown Nashville. It's got some thunderstorms that are rolling on through. You're now under a flash flood warning. Here's a closer view of that. The storms are now ending in downtown, now pushing to the south side on Interstate 24 and out on 40. And we also to the north here on 65. So probably just a really nasty rush hour right now in the Nashville area. We also have a new tornado watch. This will be a dangerous another 5 to 6 hours just starting now. From Bismarck, it looks like you have about 2 hours until those storms get to you. Southwards, also South Dakota. These will go well after sunset into this evening, so nocturnal tornadoes are a possibility. And we expect an isolated line of storms all the way down through Nebraska and Kansas. And here's the tornado threat area for tonight, late tonight towards Fargo. And I'll quickly just go through the next couple days here, Hallie, because, this is tomorrow, Minneapolis to Chicago. By the time we get to Thursday, right over the heart of the Midwest, so you see, straight line wind damage, hail, tornadoes possible. And then Friday, it's going to be so hot and humid as that cold front comes in. Cleveland, Buffalo, and eventually D.C. and New York late Friday night. Keep that in mind for your weekend travel plans. Could be a little dicey late in the day.
All right, Bill Cairns, plenty to watch. Thank you. To Texas now, where we are watching for the sentencing verdict in the trial of a high school athlete who just today was convicted of killing another student during a track meet. This controversial case that has captivated parts of the country. Jurors are now deciding whether Carmelo Anthony stabbed Austin Metcalf to death in a sudden passion, quote unquote, right? Sudden passion. Why does that matter? Because if so, that would bring down the max sentence that Anthony faces after a jury found him guilty of murder just a few hours ago. So to recap, the jury has already found him guilty of murder. Now they're considering this sudden passion question that is going to make a difference to how long he will spend behind bars. Our team inside court says Anthony seemed to be in disbelief as that guilty verdict came down earlier, at one point appearing to look down and cry. His mom immediately took the stand for the sentencing phase. So again, it starts right after the verdict comes in. You can see it in the court sketch here. She told the jury, weeping, that her son regrets stabbing Austin Metcalf, who's the student he got into a fight with last April. Prosecutors say Anthony intentionally used deadly force during that fight. The defense said Anthony acted in self-defense. Outside court, you saw tensions flare in what has been a closely watched case, with protests outside once people heard the verdict. The case has become controversial, in part because of the makeup of this jury. None of the jurors are black. In a trial where the defendant is black, Metcalf is white. I want to bring in Ryan Chandler, who is outside court. So depending on what the jury decides on this sudden passion issue, that could change how many years Anthony will spend behind bars, right?
Right, Hallie. Sudden passion is something of a legal caveat. After the prosecution has already secured a conviction for first-degree murder, they can allow the jury to consider the limiting circumstances around this. So sudden passion would limit the window of prison time from 5 to 99 years for first-degree murder, all the way down to 2 to 20 years. So it makes all the difference in the world. And right now we've been listening to both sides impress upon the jury whether they should accept that or not. The defense says sudden passion is perfectly applicable in this case because the law recognizes that your degree of culpability is different if you act out in the heat of passion versus if this was a premeditated killing. And they have argued to the jury that it was not that at all. Now, the prosecution says, look, sudden passion should not be applied here because it's only applied if the victim is also the instigator, and they seem to have made the case that it was not.
Talk to us about how we got to this point in the first place, because we've talked through the opening, the closings. At one point, there have been some really, I'm thinking of the moment when the prosecutor showed a photo of a coach giving Austin Metcalf CPR. That is just one of many emotional moments that we've seen over the course of this trial.
It's been an incredibly emotionally charged process on the inside and on the outside of the trial. We heard Carmelo Anthony's mother, for example, with an outburst after the guilty verdict was brought down, where she said, "Please have mercy on my son." And right now we're about to find how much mercy the jury is in the mood to give tonight.
Ryan Chandler, thank you very much for that. Let's get you up to New England, where it is not just political nerds keyed in on a super critical primary night that'll tell us just how enthusiastic Democrats are in a Senate race that has gotten controversial. A race Democrats basically have to win to keep up their hopes of taking control of the Senate come November. This is in Maine. Graham Plattner, right? He's technically got this primary against Governor Janet Mills, but Mills kind of stopped campaigning. She's all but dropped out a couple weeks ago, and it became clear that Plattner was going to run away with this, despite some of those aforementioned controversies, among them a tattoo with what some say is a Nazi symbol. Plattner insists he didn't know the meaning behind it when he got it. There are the deleted posts on Reddit about a bunch of things. There are the sexually explicit texts to other women at the beginning of his marriage to his wife. The couple acknowledged those texts. They've said they've worked through it all with counseling. There's the most recent allegations of what's described as unsettling behavior from some women who dated him. Allegations Plattner largely denies. Now, this is a race that is being so closely watched because the winner would face Republican Susan Collins. Voters have picked her 5 times in a row to rep their state, even in years when Barack Obama and Joe Biden won Maine and the White House. Ryan Nobles is in Blue Hills for us. I mean, I say all this to say, like, the stakes are really high. This isn't just a Maine story. It is a Maine story. It is also a national story. And there's not, insofar as there is suspense here, it is perhaps how voters say they feel about Graham Plattner, right? Not so much, I think, the protest votes for Janet Mills, but you tell me.
No, I think you're right. And I think that's part of the story, that this Maine story has become a national story, Hallie. And what we found talking to voters today is that they kind of resent that a little bit. They believe that this Senate seat belongs to them, that it doesn't belong to the national parties, the national political consultants, or the national political apparatus. And so they see these attacks against Graham Plattner in some respects, Democratic voters we're talking about specifically here, as an attack against them. And so, will Janet Mills get some votes tonight? I'm sure that she will, but it won't necessarily represent the wide majority of Democratic voters. Most Democratic voters we talked to today, even if they have concerns about these allegations against Plattner, seem to be willing to give him the benefit of the doubt. Listen to what they told us.
There's no perfect candidate that I'm going to be like, yes, you are absolutely the most perfect human being. We have limited choices, and from the choices that I've been given, I feel like that's the best choice.
The person who throws the stone in the glass house, right? I mean, to judge him for stuff that he's apologized for, he's owned it.
And part of the other thing that these voters told us today is that the fact that Graham Plattner's gone through some stuff actually makes them connect with them more, that they have gone through stuff. Their neighbors have gone through stuff, and he will take that experience with him to Washington and help represent them better. So I don't think there's going to be too many surprises here tonight when the votes roll in, Hallie. Graham Plattner has solidified his support with the Democratic base here, and he's prepared to take it into November.
But can I ask you said something interesting. I want to pull on that thread. This idea that maybe the voters in Maine, at least the ones you're talking to, kind of resent the sort of national apparatus coming in and telling them what they should want. And what's interesting here is that Plattner, as you know, wasn't necessarily the choice of a lot of, like, quote unquote mainstream Democratic leaders here in Washington at first. And so I wonder if there is not perhaps, I don't know, a more national lesson, a lesson in some of these other races that we're watching, as far as, all politics being local. I don't mean to get, like, meta-philosophical with you, but I wonder your thoughts on that as you're in the field.
Yeah, so I think it depends on each state. Every state handles these situations differently. But I do think what national leaders have to do is take the temperature of each state. And if they feel that there's an establishment rebellion, they need to lean into that rebellion, not fight against it, because the voters will ultimately have the final say. And I think that's what's playing out here in Maine for sure.
All right. Ryan Nobles, we'll be watching tonight. We'll be looking for your special coverage. Thank you very much for being there. Appreciate it. In the West now, a Hollywood murder case that has taken a pretty eye-popping twist. The son of director Rob Reiner is now trying to get access to the trust fund his mom and dad left him so that he can defend himself against charges that he killed them. So to say that again, Nick Reiner wants the money to pay for his legal bills after being accused of murdering his parents who left him this money. His attorneys filed this petition today, saying he hasn't been able to access his trust for 2 years. He's apparently entitled to $1.5 million. His attorneys say, given the circumstances, it's actually an abuse for him to not get that money. They write that Nick is currently awaiting trial on double homicide charges. No use of his funds could be more important. Reiner has pleaded not guilty to the murder of Rob and Michelle, who were found stabbed to death in their home back in December. Misty Maris is joining us now. I think this is, surprising for folks to hear that Nick Reiner is now saying he wants access to his trust fund that was presumably put in place by his parents, right, to defend himself against charges that he killed them.
Yeah, so we make some legal differentiations between what he's seeking. So just the overall idea is that there's this thing called the Slayer statute in California, and it says that you can't financially benefit from killing someone. Now, we know Nick Reiner has pled not guilty, and there's been no disposition. We haven't had a trial yet. But what Nick Reiner has done is he's made an argument that there's this irrevocable trust that was given to him by his parents, and all he has to do is reach that age of 30 years old and ultimately 35 to get all the money from the trust. And it's separate and apart from all of the other Reiner family assets. So he says he's entitled to this money. Forget the Slayer statute. Forget anything else. He's entitled to it outright because he was supposed to get half when he was 30 years old.
Could his siblings, Reiner's siblings haven't responded to requests for comment, but could his siblings block that money if they wanted to?
So, Hallie, they're not a party to this case. This is against the trustee who oversees it. But I could see a world where they intervene on that basis, given that you have the criminal trial pending.
What about, I think people, if you don't remember, and this was obviously such huge news when it happened, Reiner was initially being repped by this big-time L.A. defense attorney, Alan Jackson. He represented, Karen Reed, Harvey Weinstein, et cetera. Jackson dropped the case, apparently because Reiner couldn't afford him anymore. In the petition, apparently Jackson said he'd be willing to come back if the money is made available. Does that factor into any decision-making on this?
So it doesn't necessarily factor into what the court will consider, but you can see why Nick Reiner is pushing for this. Because keep in mind, Alan Jackson, high-profile defense attorney, but you're not just talking about the legal representation. You're talking about the whole legal team. You're talking about access to experts. This is a case where there could be an aspect of mental health or an aspect of substance abuse. So those experts would be critical.
Misty Maris, thank you very much for breaking that down. Appreciate it. Also tonight, NASA says its next Artemis launch is ready to go, but there's one kind of big problem hanging over the mission. We'll show it to you here. That Blue Origin rocket exploding. Remember that? The launch pad engulfed in flames. Both were going to be used to send important equipment into space for the Artemis astronauts, but they're now at least partially destroyed. That throws a wrench into NASA's plans to get people on the moon by 2028, potentially. So now NASA's racing to find a solution, even as they announce a new crew today. You're seeing them there. For the next phase of this mission. Tom Costello is at Johnson Space Center in Houston. And Johnson, Tom, at Johnson there, new space race back to the moon. NASA wants to go in 2028, but we've just had this Blue Origin setback. China says it's going to try to go by 2030. Yeah. Where do things stand?
So, the question here that's hanging over NASA and that I've been asking for about 10 days, 2 weeks now is, can NASA keep its timeline of getting to the moon by 2028? Can NASA get the Artemis 3 mission up in space as soon as next year? I sat down with the NASA chief, Jared Isaacman, and I said, listen, you know that China is right now neck and neck. China wants to put humans on the moon by 2030. Can the United States get there as fast or faster? Here's what he said. Are you confident America can get there first?
Of course I am, because we've done it before. Doing the near impossible, achieving the near impossible is our specialty. We will do it again. I have no doubt. And again, we just brought Artemis 2 home. We're announcing Artemis 3. We're going to start stacking rockets this summer. You're going to see more Blue Origin, more SpaceX launches. Competition can drive good outcomes. Of course, you don't want to lose. I think we're very well set up for success.
All right, so he says that we're very well set up to go forward. Take a look at the timeline here. Now, as you know, we had the Artemis 2 mission this year, right? They've been back now 2 months from their loop around the moon. After that, Artemis 3, the timeline now calls for them to go in 2027. They would loop around the Earth, not the moon, testing docking procedures with those two spacecraft that you just mentioned. Artemis 4 would land on the moon in 2028. And then separately then, Artemis 5 would begin more of the process of building out a lunar base as soon as late 28, you go into 32 by the time that they finally have a lunar base. Listen, they are all in on this, and they believe that they can do it.
Can you tell us about these astronauts? Why were they chosen specifically, these 4?
So all of them are men, and I would tell you that they're all with military backgrounds, and all but one of them has already been in space, and they're very accomplished. So let's look at Randy Bresnik, a Marine commander, and he was also a pilot, by the way. Then you've got Luca Parmitano. He is the Italian astronaut. By the way, he nearly drowned at one point in space because his helmet filled with water. Andre Douglas, a mission specialist. He's a former Coast Guard officer. And then Frank Rubio, a medical doctor, mission specialist. He spent 371 days in orbit. That is the most of any astronaut at a single time. By the way, NASA has just now put out a statement, Hallie, because everybody's been asking, why no women on this crew or in this crew? And here's what they say. NASA's crew assignments are determined by a variety of factors, including upcoming mission needs, required training timelines, crew availability, mission-specific technical requirements, and skill sets. And these 4 astronauts are best suited for this mission profile, given the demands of additional missions potentially down the road. I think that's the bottom line. By the way, obviously a very diverse crew, but the bottom line is you've got about 3 female astronauts to every 4 astronauts here that are men. And we've had plenty of female commanders, mission specialists, of astronauts, space station commanders. And for whatever reason, the chief astronaut felt like that for this mission, the astronauts with the right skills were the 4 men that you see there.
Tom Costello, live for Sarah Johnson. Tom, thank you. Good to see you. Coming up here on the show, more to get to, including some of the new developments after a shark attack at a Navy base in Florida with rare and rather stunning video that's been captured. Plus, the new rules one prediction market says it'll put in place after a bunch of accusations of insider trading. What Kalshi's doing next. Let's get you over to the 5 things our team thinks you should know about tonight. Number 1, new protests in Northern Ireland after somebody was stabbed in a knife attack there. The victim in the hospital in serious condition. You can see some of the scenes. The suspect, who police say is Sudanese, is now in custody. With some people there now calling for a crackdown on immigration and leaders urging calm. Number 2, police in Kenya have reportedly shot and killed a man during a new protest against a proposed Ebola quarantine center for American citizens. A judge there has pressed pause on that construction so far. Protesters argue the country's health system is too fragile to handle something like this. We've been covering those protests for several weeks now in that country. Number 3, Kalshi may soon start asking you where you work. Not all users are going to get that prompt. It's only going to apply to markets considered high risk. But it's one way that Kalshi now says it's working to try to tackle concerns over insider trading. Platforms like Kalshi and Polymarket have been under a lot of scrutiny over some users allegedly manipulating bets with some confidential information. Kalshi is also expanding what it calls whistleblower tools to report suspicious activity. Number 4, more than 1 million Jeep SUVs and trucks are being recalled because of fires like the one you're seeing here. The parent company says it's received more than 70 reports of these kinds of things. It's all because of a wiring issue, apparently. The fires could even spark off even if the car is not on. The recall includes Wranglers and Gladiators made between 2021 and 2025. Owners are being told to park those cars outside, away from buildings and other cars. Number 5, good news for lovers of skincare. The FDA has approved a new sunscreen ingredient for the first time in more than 2 decades. It's been used for a long time over in Europe and Asia. Experts say it's a lot more stable than other sunscreens on store shelves in the U.S. Also tonight to Florida now, where we're getting some stunning shark attack video showing what happened at a Navy base with the victim now in critical condition. We want to warn you that what you're about to see is disturbing. It is rare to see video like this. This is it here, this man in the water. You see the shark fin. You see it approaching there. You see the fin, the blood that fills the water around him. Just horrific. And then people obviously screaming, calling for help from the shore. The victim is a staff member at the base who was swimming near the marina during his lunch break yesterday when all of this happened, according to a naval commanding officer. He was badly hurt on both arms. He was rushed into surgery at the hospital. Multiple agencies are now investigating. Steve Patterson is joining us now for more. Steve, what else do we know?
Yeah, hard to watch. Really tough video to see there. We know this happens about 11:45 or so yesterday. As you mentioned, these two staff members are on their lunch break. They're swimming in what is called this recreational marina, the one you see there, and then this horrific shark attack happens. Blood in the water, fin in the air, people screaming, pleading for help. We're told, as you mentioned, taken into the hospital, treated, went through a surgery, both his arms severely injured. We're just hearing he was taken in critical condition. We do not know his status right now, but we know he was then transferred after recovering from that surgery to another trauma hospital. So really badly wounded in that attack. In the meantime, we're hearing some of the traffic between the first responders who are talking and radioing as this shark attack is coming in. I want to play it for you. Listen to what they said. Listen to this.
Shark attack out at the Navy base, and it looks like where the camper park is. This should be where the RV park and pavilion is. This is inside the base. It's at the Navy campground inside the base.
Horrific stuff. Of course, Florida is the #1 state for shark attacks. There were something like 11 bites in 2025. Of course, California, Hawaii, states like that, Texas follow on that list. Shark attacks, of course, unprovoked, exceedingly rare. It's something like 1 in 11 million. You're more likely to be struck by lightning, but they are happening. Of course, in specific feeding areas, they are becoming more and more popular. People have to watch out, especially when you're in an area like that. Hallie?
Steve Patterson, thank you. Still ahead for us tonight, the New Mexico Attorney General raising concerns about the DOJ's cooperation as he's trying to look into what happened at Zorro Ranch, Epstein's property in that state. What he's telling us in a one-on-one next. Plus, more to come, too, with the police chase in Louisiana that ended with an alligator. We've got that explanation in a sec. On Capitol Hill, one of the biggest names in business is set to face questions about his ties to Jeffrey Epstein. Bill Gates set to appear in front of the House Oversight Committee for a closed-door deposition. He's called his multiple meetings with Epstein a mistake. He hasn't been charged with any wrongdoing in connection to the notorious convicted sex offender, but lawmakers think Gates could still be a useful source of information.
We want to ask Mr. Gates why continue that relationship. Who else did he see? What else might he know? And who else should we be bringing in to ask questions of?
Gates' appearance is set for tomorrow. After today, Epstein's longtime former assistant talked with the committee, Leslie Groff. You see her there. She has previously denied any knowledge of his criminal activity. One lawmaker describing Groff as soft-spoken and sounding kind of skeptical of parts of her testimony related to Epstein.
She worked for him for 18 years, but maintains that she did not have a relationship. Well, she wouldn't call it a relationship, yet there are statements by her and by Mr. Epstein that talks about how close they were. It is highly inconsistent.
So the federal investigation, right, that congressional investigation, we should say, is unfolding as New Mexico is conducting its own state investigation. You're looking at Zorro Ranch here. That's Epstein's property. You might remember we did some reporting there some weeks ago. I spoke with the state's Attorney General, Raul Torres, earlier today, who says he has some concerns now about the Justice Department's cooperation. Thank you so much for being here. You are in Washington to speak with survivors. This was a goal, right? Talk to me about this conversation that you had with them yesterday.
So there was a convening that was hosted by the World Without Exploitation, which is a group that really is focusing on raising awareness in this country and around the world, frankly, about the impact of human trafficking. And it provided an opportunity for us to get in front of Epstein survivors and let them know about New Mexico's ongoing criminal investigation.
To do this, to conduct this investigation, you obviously need materials, you need information, and you have asked, and you referenced this yesterday too, that you've asked the DOJ for unredacted access to the Epstein files, and you still do not have it. Why do you think that is?
Well, look, we're working through a process that's called the 2E process. It's complicated, but the bottom line is there is a longstanding practice of federal law enforcement and state law enforcement collaborating, coordinating, sharing information. We have engaged the Department of Justice. We are still waiting for that access. It is frustrating. I'll tell you that it is hindering our ability
to move this investigation forward at the pace that I would like. And I'm hoping that we can resolve that in a way that serves the interests of these survivors. But, you know, it remains to be seen whether or not we're going to have unredacted access to the
But what does that mean? Do you is your only option here to wait? What do you do from here if the DOJ is not going to play ball and give you what you're asking for?
Well, I haven't ruled anything out in terms of what next steps might be.
Including legal action against the DOJ?
That's a possibility. But my hope is that we can have a cooperative relationship. We've been meeting with people on Capitol Hill who have really taken a lead in trying to bring transparency to the Epstein files. I know that's the thing that is frustrating both members of both party on Capitol Hill, but also the survivors themselves.
You said you are hopeful for cooperation here from this Department of Justice, which is if the nomination for the potentially soon-to-be Attorney General goes through, will be Todd Blanche leading that department. He is somebody who said just a couple of months ago that to the extent that the Epstein files was a part of the past year of this Justice Department, it should not be a part of anything going forward. Do you believe then, given that Todd Blanche is the right person to lead the DOJ and by extension lead any sort of cooperation with your office on the Epstein files?
Yeah, I would defer that judgment to the members of the Senate Judiciary Committee, who I know are going to be tasked with taking up his nomination. What I will say is that as a career law enforcement and state and federal prosecutor, it's unusual for us to not have this kind of cooperation.
Does it concern you that the potential next AG said what he said about the Epstein case?
It is. I mean, it's concerning that we don't have a level of cooperation that, again, as a longtime prosecutor, was pretty routine for state investigators and prosecutors to work with our federal counterparts, ask for information, and receive that information in a timely fashion. We are continuing to try and work through the process that they have established, but at this point, there is a growing sense of frustration on my team about the lack of access to critical information.
So what does that timeline look like? I know you've told survivors that you can't be sharing every detail publicly about your investigation because it is criminal, but what can you say about where this is going? I look at, for example, Leslie Groff, who's going to be on Capitol Hill today testifying behind closed doors. Is she somebody you want to talk to? What else? Who else are you looking to bring in?
Well, we will be looking to talk to and dig into the details around any individual who was directly involved with Jeffrey Epstein's conduct at Zorro Ranch in New Mexico. And so we don't leave anyone off the table in terms of the leads that we're going to follow. But this is a really important point. I think there is some confusion about the fact that as a criminal investigation, we don't talk publicly. This is Fight Club. We don't talk about it.
You can issue subpoenas, right?
We can.
And have you?
And well, we won't. We're not going to discuss publicly what we do as investigators because that's in the nature of what we do, and it's very different than members of Congress. And I've had members of Congress and others, even back in New Mexico on the Truth Commission, urge us to really get into the details publicly about what we're doing. But what I want to do in terms of public statements is to encourage survivors.
Well, and to this point, you know, when you talk about trust, one of the things in my conversations with some survivors, I do think there is to a degree a sense of fatigue sometimes with the process.
Absolutely.
They've done a lot of talking. I think there are many survivors who want to see some accountability now moving forward. When you say to them, I'm not just another man in a blue suit, I need you to trust me. Why should survivors believe that you will be the person to, as they hope, carry this ball over the finish line when it comes to some sort of degree of accountability additionally?
Yeah, I mean, frankly, it's because we are not spending a lot of time publicly discussing all of the things that they have already talked about publicly. My career and my entire life in public service, frankly, has been focused on trying to protect survivors, right? To protect children who have been abused, adults who have been the victims of sexual assault and sexual violence. And one of the things that I've learned from that experience is that it's a sacred thing to build a relationship with a survivor and ask them to share details which are, I mean, the most tragic things that you can.
It's so vulnerable.
That's right. And so what we want them to understand is that this is different. I'm not trying to promise them an outcome as a prosecutor. We never do that. We will never make a promise about a particular outcome that we want to achieve at the end of this, other than getting to the truth, other than getting to the bottom of exactly what happened and getting a clear understanding of how this was allowed to occur at Zora Ranch for so long without a law enforcement response.
Mr. Attorney General, thank you so much for being with us. An important conversation. We appreciate it.
Absolutely.
NBC News covers hundreds of other stories every day, and because it can be tough to read or watch or listen to them all, our bureau teams have done it for you. This is what they tell us is going down in their regions in a segment we call The Local. Out of our Western Bureau, one person has been killed, another hurt after a shooting in L.A. led a car to slam into this beauty salon. It's not clear if the victim died because of the shooting or the crash. Officials are still looking for the gunman. Out of our Northeast Bureau, a huge fire at a triple-decker apartment building in Massachusetts. Look, you can see the fire coming out from the back porch right there. 12 people had to be evacuated, but fortunately nobody was hurt. And out of our Southern Bureau, an unexpected turn during a police chase in Louisiana. Police there say a man was attacked by an alligator when he jumped in a swamp to try to get away from the cops. So he gets into the swamp to get away from police, ends up with an alligator. He'd been pulled over for reckless driving. Can you see he's swimming? That's the body cam video showing him swimming. He was bitten, but then kept going. He kept running. Officially, we understand officers have arrested him. They have taken him to the hospital. Coming up, have you heard this? The Pope meeting with Bad Bunny, riding in a fighter jet. We're going to take you inside his first trip to Spain in this new role, and all the highlights in just a sec. To tonight's original now with in-depth reporting on a topic we've been watching. And tonight, we're taking you to Spain for the Pope's first trip there, the first American Pope. And guess what he did? He met with Bad Bunny in Madrid, as one does when you're the Pope, before making his way to Barcelona, where we're getting an inside look at what is now the tallest church in the world, La Sagrada Familia. Tomorrow, Pope Leo set to bless its new tower and honor 100 years since the death of the church's mastermind, even as he finds himself embroiled in a bit of controversy. Raf Sanchez explains.
Soaring over Barcelona's skyline, the Sagrada Familia is an unfinished architectural wonder, a century in the making. But its central spire, the Tower of Jesus Christ, is now finally complete. 566 feet high and crowned with a cross the size of a 5-story building, it makes Sagrada Familia officially the tallest church in the world.
It's definitely the most exciting church I've ever seen.
Millions flock here every year, including more than 700,000 Americans.
I've traveled a lot, and this is the piece of architecture that blows me away.
And soon the first American Pope will be among them. Arriving today in Barcelona as part of a week-long trip to Spain, where he was greeted by more than 1 million people in Madrid and held a private meeting with pop superstar Bad Bunny, who was performing in the Spanish capital at the same time, and becoming the first pontiff to address the Spanish parliament, warning lawmakers that war and political polarization are pushing the world into a profound spiritual and cultural crisis.
So the Sagrada Familia looks pretty close to being finished, but from here you can see those cranes all around it. Construction won't be fully done until at least 2034, according to authorities, and even that isn't a firm date.
Tomorrow, Pope Leo will officially bless the completed Jesus Tower and commemorate 100 years since the death of the man who first imagined it. Legendary Catalan architect Antoni Gaudí, the mastermind of Sagrada Familia's distinctive shape and texture. He began construction in the late 1800s, and his work was far from finished when he was killed in a tram accident in 1926. But the vision outlived the visionary, and over the last century, generations of architects have strived to finish Gaudí's work. Among them, Mauricio Cortez, who last year took NBC News behind the scenes as his team assembled the giant cross.
Gaudí wanted the cross to resemble a crystal.
In one of Pope Francis's last acts before his death, he put Gaudí, sometimes known as God's architect, on the path to potential sainthood. Now he'll need 2 verified miracles if the Sagrada Familia's continued glory isn't enough. A miraculous monument of faith, unfinished but beautiful, now ready to be blessed by the Pope.
Raf is joining us now. the assignment of the week, the live shot of the week. I mean, that is a heck of a scene behind you, Raf. And what's also interesting here, 100%. I am intrigued as we have, all over the world, World Cup fever going down too. The Pope found himself in a bit of a controversy there in the middle of Spain's biggest rivalry when he visited Real Madrid this week instead of the Barcelona team, right?
Yeah, big controversy, Hallie, in a city where soccer is like a religion in itself. This actually began before the Pope even set foot in Spain. He was asked on the papal plane to Madrid whether he supported Real Madrid or Barcelona. And the Pope, who of course was born Robert Prevost, gave this kind of interesting answer. He said, that's easy. The Pope is for all teams, but Prevost is for Real Madrid. That did not go down well here. Hallie.
Okay, Raf Sanchez, much to watch. We'll look for more from you from Spain soon. Still ahead. So thanks for watching. This is HJN on NBC.
We thank you for watching. And remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.